Hello, good evening and welcome. Sounds really classic, doesn't it? My name is Lou. I am your dessert obsessed baker here at Crumbs and Corkscrews, and welcome to another wet, wild and windy Wednesday in the Cotswolds, and welcome to my kitchen. I hope wherever you are in the world, you are safe and well. And if you're joining on the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, or even the replay, thank you so much for joining me. It is super, super appreciated. If you are new here, like I say, my name is Lou. I am totally dessert obsessed, and I bring to you deliciously easy dessert recipes. It doesn't matter if you're new to the kitchen or if you're out there nailing a Hollywood handshake and star baker every week in the GBBO tent. You will find something that is really great to make and ultimately tastes amazing. So yeah, welcome to my kitchen. If you are new, what we do is we have just a few moments, let all those notifications ping off out there in the world, in the internet world. Just let people come on in let them, hello, John, let everybody come in and we'll get started, as you can see, in about 30 seconds. You can also see here, this is what we're making today, chocolate caramel loaf cake. You guys out there on all the different socials have voted for this. It was a really fine vote between that and the mint choc brownies, which I will be doing. I'll do them as a separate recipe because I know everybody really likes them. But you can go and find the original recipe that I wrote probably 10 years ago now, is out there ready for you if you do want to take a look. But there, that's our countdown done. Let's bake. I'm just going to move my slippers out the way as well so I don't trip over them. It's going to be one of them evenings. Let me just shift them out. Oh dear. So yeah, if you are new, what we do is we just go quickly through the recipe, then the ingredients, and then we're gonna get baking off in the evening. Hi Rachel as well. Yes, this one does sound yummy and I can't wait to share it with you guys. So I do that every week. The wrong side. Oh good God. We are making a chocolate caramel loaf cake, because I ran out of room there when I was doing the graphics. This is a take on your classic loaf cake. We're going to get chocolate in there. We're going to get caramel in there. We're going to marble them all together. We're going to make a beautiful caramel buttercream to go with it. And it's just, it's the perfect cake to go with a good cuppa. That's hot. I've just made that. Going to move that off to one side. It serves about 10 to 12 slices. Depends how big you like your slices. I like a loaf cake nice and thick. Get a really good slab of cake there. The skill level, as always, my recipes are delicious and easy, but this one is easy. There is no faffing. We're going to bake, put it in the oven, and we're good to go. Taste-wise, I've put salted caramel heaven because I'm going to add a little pinch of salt to mine. I love salted caramel. You can put the salt in, you can leave it out. The recipe works perfectly. Either way, it's entirely up to you. But I'm going to add a little pinch of salt later on and we'll talk about that. And I really like that because the salt and the caramel with the chocolate that's packed through in that marble cake is just brings out all those flavours for me. Pros-wise, well, it's fun. We're going to marble it up so you'll get a lovely sort of swirl effect when you cut through your cake. It's flavourful. We've got the caramel, we've got the chocolate, and we've got the salt if you want that there. And it's, like I say, it's a take on a classic chocolate loaf. It lifts it that little bit more. And cons, well, honestly, there isn't any, in my opinion. Well, if you don't like chocolate, you don't like caramel, and you don't like cake, then maybe that is a con. But actually, there really isn't any for this. I absolutely love it. And I'm going to give you an idea. You can just go with the cake and the buttercream, but I'm going to give you an idea where you can maybe channel out a bit of the cake on the top and put a nice river of your caramel across as well. So when you cut into it, you get a real nice gooey ooze. So let's look at our ingredients. Don't panic, it looks a lot, but it's not. They are basic ingredients as usual. And that's everything here to one side. There's a great big box of icing sugar that I'm just going to move out of the way. We are starting, as always, with our butter. Salted butter, slightly salted butter, softened at room temperature. We'll talk about that when we get into baking itself. But if you want to use unsalted butter, you can do. I would add just a tiny pinch of salt into it. The salt, if you don't have to watch that, it just brings out the flavours. It helps intensify everything, brings the sweetness out as you've got that contrast. So having the salt in the caramel, but also having a little bit of salt in your butter is great. It has been cold today, really chilly, like really, really chilly. So I've had the butter out since this morning, but to help it, I've cut it soften. I've cut it into tiny chunks. You don't have to. It's just easier, I found, to make sure that for you guys this evening, it was soft enough. So we've got 225 grams of salted butter. Because we've got the chocolate and the caramel, I really wanted to bring those flavors out. So we're mixing up our sugars. We've got 100 grams of just regular white caster sugar there and 125 grams of soft light brown sugar. I'm not going all brown sugar because that will really intensify those caramel flavors when we add the caramel in. So having the balance between the two brings the best of both worlds. If you just want to use one sugar, just use 225 grams of your white caster sugar. But that's what we're going to be using. The brown sugar has this real nice caramelly flavour that will work with the caramel in that part of the cake. It won't affect the chocolate. It won't make the chocolate part of the cake feel caramelly. If I was using a dark brown sugar or a dark muscovado, then that would be too intense. That's why we're using a light brown sugar. We're going to be using caster sugar. We're going to be using self-raising flour, so 225 grams of that. And we're going to be using 1 teaspoon of baking powder just to add into our flour. If you want to, you can use a plain flour or an all-purpose flour. What you would need to do is you'd need to up the baking powder. So for every 100 grams of plain flour you use, you'd add an extra teaspoon of baking powder. So for this 225 grams, if it was plain flour, that's 2 for the 100, 1 for the 200, and 1 teaspoon as per the recipe. I wouldn't go around faffing and adding any more, but I'd go with 3 teaspoons of the baking powder. Our eggs, 4 eggs at room temperature. Eggs, as we know, always at room temperature. 4 medium size. I know I've got 6 here. I just couldn't be bothered to take 2 out of the holder. But we want 4 medium eggs. Then for our mixture, what we're going to do is make that all of one, and then we'll split it into 2 equal quantities, and we'll make one mix through the chocolate, the cocoa powder, and then the other with the caramel. So for this, you could use a regular cocoa powder. It works perfectly well. It gives you the right chocolate hit. So you can use a regular cocoa powder. I am going to use the dark black cocoa powder that we've used for the Black Forest cakes and all the Oreo pumpkins this week. I like it as it gives more of a contrast in those colours in the marbling when I cut through. But you can use just regular cocoa powder, not hot chocolate, because that's got added sweetener and sugar in and milk powder, which sort of interferes with the baking, just regular cocoa powder. So, but I'm using the dark one. And then we're also going to be using some caramel. Now, you can make your own caramel if you want. But I'm using the Carnation Caramel Dulce de Leche. It looks like this. It's perfect for baking and mixing through. It's not too sweet. It's not too heavy. It's not runny, so it's not going to make our mixture extra wet or add too much sugar in there. But this is perfect. You can make this yourself with condensed milk, not evaporated milk, condensed milk. But it always scares me because you leave it on the hob and you boil it and you have to watch it. So it's easier to spend the 80p and buy the tin. And you can get that in home, store-owned brands as well. So we're going to use about 25 grams. I think I've got a little bit more in there, but that's fine. 25 grams of our carnation caramel. For the buttercream, we're then going to be using, again, some more butter. There's a lot of butter in this one. So we've got 150 grams of the salted butter, the same as before. We're going to be using our icing sugar, which I've got in a box because it makes a mess. I'm using silver spoon, but doesn't matter which one. There's so many out there. So that's your icing sugar. And then we're also going to be putting a bit more of our caramel in to make our caramel buttercream. And I talked about making it salted. And in here, I've got some sea salt flakes. And we're going to be taking a pinch of these. And I use sea salt. And I recommend if you're adding salt into your bakes for any reason, using a sea salt flake or a ground fine sea salt. It doesn't have regular table salt, can taste chemically or metallic. So, but the sea, because it has the processes of it. But with sea salt, it is just that, and I find it gives you the better salt flavour. And you don't need a lot of it; you just need a pinch. So we're going to be using that. So that's our ingredients. And equipment-wise then, the main thing that you'll want, apart from the usual, the hand mixer, I'm going to be using the KitchenAid, your mixing bowls, your spatulas, your palette knives. Baking parchment is your loaf tin. So this is a 2-pound loaf tin. It's about 23 by 13. You might see it called a 900-gram loaf tin. Ian bakes his bread in these, but this is a Lakeland one. But it's got a good depth on it. That's what you're looking for, and nice sides in there. We've got some Waitrose ones which have got some handles on, so they're easier to hold. But you want a good depth. Doesn't matter if it's non-stick because we're going to be lining this up with some baking parchment. So that is a real whistle-stop tour through our ingredients. I'm going to take a slurp of my coffee. I've just looked and realised I've missed some things. Let me move that out of the way. As usual, we'll add a spot of vanilla extract. I'm going to add a small spoon of instant microground coffee into my chocolate mixture. A bit like the salt, bringing out that sweetness with the caramel. The coffee, you don't taste it in the cake, is going to intensify that chocolate flavour. So we're going to get the best of both worlds. That is an optional thing. You don't have to do it. When I post on the blog, I will add that and tell you all about that. And then I bought these today. I was looking for regular pretzels because I was thinking, oh, salty, crunchy. Oh, pretzels would be really good. And then Co-op only had sour cream and chive, which I really didn't think went with this. So we've got these flips, which were around donkey's years ago, but they've made a resurgence. These are chocolate coated pretzels, and I'm going to use those to decorate, but you can do whatever you want on the top. So that's it. Let's get into it. Let's get going. I'm going to pop that to one side with the baking parchment, and we're going to get on with the baking cake. I haven't named the KitchenAid yet, but Workhorse, I think, is becoming a good name. So unlike the other week when we made the apple crumble tray bake where we did a reverse creaming method, where we mixed our dry ingredients and then mixed our wet in with that. We're going to do a regular creaming method for this because we want, unlike the tray baked cake where we wanted that sort of closer knit texture, so it held its shape when you cut, we're going to be using a regular creaming method. So we're going to start off with our room temperature softened butter. And when I say softened, I mean when you squeeze it, it will squeeze down, but your fingers aren't going straight through. They're not sliding through. There is a little bit of give there. And that's what we're going to be doing. My hands are clean. So in with 225 grams of butter. And then we're going to add in our sugars. So like I say, we're going to be using two. We've got the white sugar and the soft brown sugar. So 125 grams of light soft brown sugar. In it goes. And 100 grams of our caster sugar. I'm going to put that one to one side. Let's move that out of the way. And on we go. So we're just going to start mixing this together. So it takes, if I'm honest, when you're creaming, a lot of the time that you can go, oh yeah, that looks good. It's done. Let's start adding our eggs. And then it starts to look a bit lumpy and it still tastes amazing. But what we're looking for a really nice texture at our cake is really making sure this is creamed together really well. So we start off slow and the sugar starts to coat those lumps of butter. And then I'm going to start taking it up a notch. We're looking for something that's really light in terms of texture. And if we were just using white sugar, it would be light and pale at the same time. So let's just let that go. If you're finding when you are creaming your sugar and your butter that actually it's going, but it looks quite dense, you can use a little drop of milk in there. And I'm just going to add a tiny drop, just a teaspoon. And that helps sort of acts as, I'd say it acts as a lubricant, but it's not lubricating anything. It just helps the creaming process in a way, just help make it a little bit more smoother because you've got that wetness from the milk. I'm going to take that up and just let that keep going. And then I'll show you guys this in a moment. I love this. This KitchenAid doesn't jump around the works like my old one did. I'd be stood here like this with the old one. Let's take a little bit of a scrape down. And it's if there's Prime Day coming up and all sorts of things like that. You can do this with a hand mixer if you want. If you're feeling strong, as I always say, you can do this with a wooden spoon and do it by hand if you're feeling so inclined. But the key thing is getting it really light and fluffy. So I'll be honest, this looks good, but it's not quite there. It feels a bit stiff and heavy still. So I'm going to pop that on and I'm going to add another splash of milk. Now, I'm adding that splash of milk. It's not going to add anything to the recipe that's going to make it feel a bit, it's not going to interfere with the texture or the moistness of the cake itself. So don't be afraid to add a teaspoon or even a tablespoon just to help with this process. So have a quick slurp. I hope everybody had a really fun Halloween last night. or your pictures, the pictures of the pumpkins that you guys shared, Rachel, and some others look great. I love seeing people's pumpkins. That sounds a bit weird. I'm not a pumpkin fan because I don't like the smell of them, so we don't have a pumpkin. Have pumpkins, but not those sort of pumpkins, and ceramic ones. So this is coming together. This looks really good now. Just adding that milk has allowed it just to be a little bit smoother and combine a bit more. And even though we've added that brown sugar, it has paled off in colour. So let's take a look at this. There we go. And I can feel the difference from the last scrape down to this scrape down. It's a lot less flaggy. At this time of year, especially when it's cold outside and you're trying to get your butter all nice and soft at room temperature, it can be a little bit difficult. There's various ideas out there. Let's have a look. See, there it is. There's various ideas out there how you can soften your butter. The one thing that I'd recommend not doing, this is not, is if you want to soften your butter, don't put it in the microwave. Because the microwave is going to melt it, and it won't soften the center. It will start on the edges and they'll melt, and then that bit gets greasy, but the rest of your butter is still quite solid in the middle. So it doesn't work very well. So if you're going to, what people do is fill a glass or a bowl, maybe something like this, full of hot water. Repurpose the hot water, put it in the washing up sink, make a cup of coffee with it if it's a clean bowl. Turn that out, empty the water out into wherever, then put that over the pack of butter, unwrapped pack of butter. Your butter's on a plate, and the heat that's retained from the bowl, so a glass bowl is good, ceramic. People do it with glasses, like drinking glasses as well. That heat is just enough to help soften your butter. Leave it there for about 10-15 minutes and it's good to go. In the summer, it's always easier, isn't it? I'm just going to crack the eggs in and we'll talk about these in a moment. The summer is very different. I'm doing the eggs 2 at a time because it's warmer. Your butter can be out in 10 minutes and it's at melting point. But yeah, that's the best way to go. So egg wise, then we're adding 4 medium eggs that are at room temperature. Remember, we like our eggs being at room temperature. It helps those protein strands in the whites of the eggs, albumin, helps break them down, and they combine with the fats and the sugar that we've creamed together. Also, when we put it in the oven, eggs and butter are terrible for keeping cool, but bringing them up to at least room temperature means that by the time you've quickly made everything and then you've got it in the oven, everything's all at the same temperature. If we put things in that are cold and warm and then we mix them together and then we put them in the oven, that fabulous baking reaction that happens, everything's working, things are already at temperature. They're like, yes, let's get going, let's bake, let's combine. And your fridge cold eggs there at the bottom just going, hey man, I'm chilled. I need to warm up first. So they're all working at different levels. If they're all on the same playing field, if they're all on a level pitch, when you put them in the oven, they can do their job. They can get on. They can be combining, and then you get a really good, nice bake. So that's our thing. So I've put my eggs in here. And I've started on low. I've just tweaked it up a little bit. The other thing is, if you add cold eggs to our butter and our sugar creamed mixture, sometimes you find it curdles. If it curdles, it's not a problem. You can add a spoon of your flour and it'll help bring it together. But we're trying to avoid that and have them at room temperature. We've got a good mix going here by the looks of it. It's looking good. So it will sort of It's wet, obviously. We've just started to add some really wet ingredients to there, but it's not curdled. It's all come together really nicely. So I'm just going to have a scrape down and a scrape round. And always, when you stop to add more, have a good scrape, especially if you're using a stand mixer, because everything gets stuck in the bottom. And we want to make sure they all get all those ingredients. It's usually the sugar or the flour gets stuck at the bottom. We want to give them all a chance to be combined. So 2 more eggs. Did this the wrong way round. My hands are at the back of that. Medium eggs. I always use medium eggs. So and free range. If you're using something like a Bertha Brown egg from Clarence Court, or if you've seen the Cackle Bean eggs, which have got beautiful yolks, which are amazing for when you're making scrambled eggs or eggs on the weekend. But if you're using them and you're baking, those beautiful yellow oats taste so delicious, but they will add a little bit of colour to your cake mixture. Now I'm just going to let that go and do its thing there, just on a slow bit. Just want to make sure that's well combined. And we'll just have a look at our cake tin. Because, actually, no, we're not. We're going to do our flour, and then I'll do that in a minute. I was trying to think ahead. I was thinking I need to put the oven on shortly, but I'm not going to. I've got a moment, and I realised actually we need to split this mixture out. So don't jump ahead of yourself, Louise. So give it a scrape down, throw it across the counter. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add our flour and our baking powder. So I've sieved everything already, which is fine. I've just added my baking powder into my flour. I'm going to use that bowl again in a moment. And before I mix this with the mixer, I'm going to give it a fold by hand, because otherwise we're just going to, and it gets everywhere. And we don't want to overwork our cake mixture either. When we put it on the mixer in a moment, we don't want to overwork it. So give it a good fold through. I mean, if you don't want to put it on the mixer, you don't have to, but I like doing so. I'm going to add, right at the lid off, my teaspoon of vanilla extract, which is a cap. This is my homemade vanilla, which I love. Still keeps going on. Kim Butler, who sometimes joins if she's about, I think Kim made vanilla extract when we made it in lockdown. So I've mixed that through, given it a fold through, added my vanilla extract, put it on. I'm just going to give it a quick mix up. And what you now get is this beautiful, smooth, lush cake batter. Oh my God, it's one of my favourites. This is the bit, can I lick the bowl? That's what happens here when Ian's at home. Now he's out. Now I'm doing these on a Wednesday, and he's out riding his mountain bike with his friends. He's off in the Forest of Dean tonight, I think. He doesn't get the bowl. He feels a bit deflated. So this. There we are. So our cake batter is nice and smooth. If you wanted to just make this as a regular vanilla cake, this is a point you stop. You might add a little bit more vanilla extract, but you can stop here. You don't have to continue going. That's why I love this recipe. It's so versatile. I'm going to move him back because we don't need him for the moment. But what I'm going to do is get the scales. Now, you don't have to do this. You can eyeball this if you want. I am going to use the mix again because I'm going to do this 2 ways. I roughly know how much I've got in there, so eyeball it and split this in half. 1/2 is going to be for your caramel, 1/2 is going to be for your chocolate, and it's usually for this mix about 350 for each portion, shall we say. So I am going to put this back on the mixer, and I'm going to do that so we can mix the chocolate one nice together. Go up. If you know that the C word is coming up, as in Christmas, if you are looking for a hand mixer, there's some really good ones out there that aren't breaking the bank. And obviously, like I said, you've got Prime Day, Black Friday coming up, and the Kenwood K mixes. In fact, I looked at the Kenwood K mix, and then I got the same deal for the KitchenAid, so I went with the KitchenAid. Kenwood K mix is just as amazing. I love Kenwood. So yes, and they do make light work of things. So I'm going to make my caramel with this one, and I'm going to make my chocolate in here. So for the caramel, all I'm literally going to do is that carnation caramel that I've got. I'm going to spoon in, and I'm going to mix it through. We've got the caramel texture from the sugar as well. Oh God, it smells so good. We've got the caramel texture and the flavours from the sugar as well. And I'm just going to add that through. And it does take on a little bit more of a brown colour, caramel colour. A bit like we were talking last week with the custard, you can get caramel or toffee like flavour drops if you want to. Again, it's not my thing. I find that even though they're not synthetic or they've been like all these processes, I still find they taste a bit artificial. So I like adding as our main ingredients. So that's our caramel one. Simple as that. For the cocoa, the chocolate one then, like I say, we're going to be using cocoa powder and a little bit of just a tiny touch of the old coffee powder. You can use regular coffee if you want to. If you're using it with the big granules, just mix it with a little teaspoon of water to make it into a paste first. That's why the micro granule ones. This is the Azera. There's all sorts out there. Aldi do one as well. Espresso powders. Just you don't have to do anything with it, and just like I've just done, mix it through. That said, the coffee is entirely optional. You don't have to add it if you don't want to. So I'm going to add that cocoa powder in there. And again, I'm just going to fold this through with the spatula. And this is going to be, because we're using that dark cocoa powder, it's going to be a lot darker. Now, what I am going to do is, where's my milk? Cocoa powder can be really quite drying in a cake. So if I'm making a pure chocolate cake, as we've done before, and we did with the Black Forest, I add either like sour cream or natural yogurt or creme fraiche, because it helps keep that moisture in there. Because I'm not using a lot and I can't be bothered to get out of the fridge, I'm just going to use a drop of extra milk, and that's just enough as well. That works perfectly well. So I've just added a drop in there. And just want to, I'm doing the chocolate on here just to make sure that all that cocoa powder is mixed through nicely. There we go. Ta-da! So we've got our two flavours. Now you could do this with chocolate and vanilla. You could do it with chocolate and another. I don't know what you put in with chocolate and the other chocolate one. Chocolate and vanilla is great though. It's One of my favourites. We were in Disneyland Paris recently, and they do a chocolate and vanilla, and it's a vanilla cake, but the chocolate bit through the middle is Mickey Mouse. You know, made me happy. So we've got our chocolate and we've got our caramel. Let's get rid of the KitchenAid. We're going to pop our oven onto preheat now, and we're going to bake this at 180, 360 Fahrenheit. So 180 degrees C, 350 Fahrenheit. You can, if you want to, bring it down to 160 degrees C. I think is 325 Fahrenheit. And just have a lower, slower bake. It doesn't affect the cake in any way. It just, you might find that it is a bit flatter. So if you're looking for a flat top cake, drop your temperature a little bit and just go for a longer, slower bake. Let's get this on. But I'm going to go 180. I'm just looking at my levels of my trays in there. I think that one might be a bit high if it puffs up. So that's on to preheat. Takes about 5 minutes. In the meantime, we're bringing our stuff together. I always say, if you pick your recipe up and you see you've got a lot of ingredients or there's a lot of steps, and your recipe says preheat your oven to, I know, preheat, the first thing you do, preheat your oven, and then we're going to tell you to do all these massive steps. It's great. Your oven's nice. It's preheated, but, you know, we're all being conscious at the moment, and you've just wasted a half an hour of electricity. I'm now just thinking where my scissors are. Oh, dear, they are in the dishwasher. Which has been on, but I'm just going to give them a final rinse. My tea towel here. So we're going to line our baking tray, our baking tin, our loaf tin, 2 pound loaf tin. Doesn't need to be non-stick. Even if it was a non-stick one, I would still line it because I like to know that I can lift my loaf out. That's our main thing here. So we're going to layer 2 pieces of parchment, one this way and one this way. And what I'm going to do is, this is just the paper from the butter earlier, and I'm just going to just a little bit of grease on there from the butter when it's been in the paper, and it's just going to grease that all round, and it just gives something for our parchment to stick to. Yeah, put that there to go in the bin. So I think if I can take, there's the teethy bit in here, which was really sharp earlier. I hadn't realised how sharp it was. I'm going to take, this needs a little bit of calculation, but I'm going to take a long strip that way. There we go. I'm just going to lie that there. And that butter, just from the butter pat there, is gripped it in place. Don't worry about these bits that go over. They have a mind of their own. You can use a couple of clothes pegs if you want. Shall I show you? That's if I haven't put them, well, I've put them away. Never mind. You can use a couple of wooden clothes pegs. Don't use plastic ones. Just to peg that on there whilst it's baking if you want to. I am going to, I've got quite a long bit, so. Actually, if we turn it round, they'll flop over the other way, won't they? There we go. And then for this side then, I've got that, see, perfect length, width. I'm going to not need all of that. I can put some of that away for another day. And line our cake tin like that. and turn it around because it curls the other way. So that's it. That's how we're going to line it. But it means that when it's baked, we can just use those two sides to lift it up, and the sides are supported by that. Now, all we're going to do is find another spoon. We'll find the spoon that we did have and we put over there. Marbling. Now, you can, if you want to, put a layer and swirl it round with your old cocktail stick or something. But we're just going to go the easy way and see what happens. We're going to put that to one side. We're going to go a good scoop of chocolate. We'll layer that in. Put that there. A scoop of caramel. On the side. And put some caramel there. Just going, it's a bit like, see what happens there. Maybe a little bit there. Dollop your mixture. It doesn't have to be the same amount or whatever, just give it a that's quite a lot on that. Da, da, da. Oop, don't get the spoon in the chocolate. And when this bakes, it'll work itself out. You know, the two together will just get themselves a little bit of a party going and mix themselves up. Have a little bit of a mixer there. I've got a little spatula I'm just going to use to scrape off everything. What I've got left of the chocolate, I'm just now dolloping onto the caramel sponge. There we go. Oh, it smells so good. And I'm the washing up pile. I've emptied the dishwasher. Let's just get those last bits out. There we go. And then that's all in, but I'm just going to give it a mix. I'm not getting in there and giving it a mix. I'm just sort of prodding and poking it a little bit because I do want to get that flat top. So I'm just going to take my angled spatula as always and just level that off. Now, when I do this for a lemon cake, what I do is I sort of pile up the middle a little bit and then make a line down it. So when you've got that lemon loaf and you've got that beautiful dome and the crack, you can pour your lemon drizzle into that. But I'm not going to do that. So that's that. I've leveled it off, and obviously we've got the chocolate in there, but inside we've got the caramel and we've got the chocolate. So that's now going to go in the oven, which is up to temp, for about 50 to 60 minutes. And I've put it onto a baking tray because it was what was in the oven. You don't have to. When I'm doing a loaf cake, I do like to have it on a tray just in case it decides to have an explosion. That's in 50 to 60 minutes. That's our sponge made. Let me just have a quick rinse of my hands. And we're going to make a really quick and easy now buttercream. And then we'll I'll leave you to your evening whilst that finishes cooking. And then when that's finished, I can have some dinner. Oh, I screwed that up. I didn't want to. Let's put that there. So then, buttercream. We're going to be using the stand mixer again for this. There's so much washing up. I normally manage to hide it from you guys. So we're going to be making our buttercream. We're going to be doing it on the stand mixer. Again, you can do this by hand. You can do it with a hand mixer. I really recommend, if you're doing a hand mixer, the one I used for the cheesecakes last week, the Breville Heat Soft. I think it's on offer on Amazon. It has been on offer on Amazon. You know, we're talking about your butter being soft and combining. It has this amazing function. I do sometimes use it if I've been a bit lazy and haven't got my butter out. It's got a heat function, and it's warm air that it blows down. So as you're mixing, that comes down onto your butter and it helps soften it. It's not melting it, it just softens it, which means everything then, obviously, we do all that lovely combining that we were talking about. Excuse me. So having that heat softener is amazing. And they're the only people I've seen do it. I looked at it and covered it for ages on Amazon. And then it was on offer, so I went for it. So for our buttercream then, let's just move some bits out of the way. We're going to be using our icing sugar, our butter. I don't need any vanilla. I don't need any cocoa powder. And I don't need any instant coffee. But softened butter, icing sugar, our caramel again, and I've got the sea salt this time. I didn't add the salt to the caramel mixture in the cake because it's a different type. With it being in the buttercream, if we sprinkle a little bit on top of the buttercream, it's a hit in those bits. When it's baked, if you bake it in, it's sort of just makes it taste salty, in my opinion. So because it combines with all the other things that's going on. So that's why if I'm doing salted caramel cake, I'll do it for the buttercream, or if we're using caramel or dulce de leche in the middle. So these are our ingredients. We're going to get the scales back out for that in a minute. But we're going to start off again with our butter. This is our room temperature softened butter. Like I said, you can squeeze it. Oop, that one jumped out my hands. It's not solid. You can feel it squishing. So in that, come on, in that goes. Da, da, da. And this time I'm starting with the whisk attachment. Now, if you're using a hand whisk, you've got the beaters anyway, so that's perfect. On a stand mixer, what I don't want to do is use the beater blade that we had before, because by whipping the butter here, it's a bit like whisking an egg. I know they're two totally different things, but what we're going to do is we're going to whip the butter so it becomes more creamy. It does incorporate air and it's really light. It's not a heavy buttercream. We don't want a heavy buttercream. So I'm going to start that going. It takes a little bit of time. And we whip it up. It takes about 4 to 5 minutes to really get it to a really good place where we're ready to add the icing sugar. If you've had a cupcake or a cake, but it's usually a cupcake that you have a lot of buttercream on the top and you find it's quite dense, it's not smooth, it's because the butter hasn't been whipped enough. It just takes it to another level. It's light, it's spreadable, it doesn't feel heavy when you eat it. So that's what we're doing here. I'm just going to take that up now. And it's almost like whipping it to a really, really heavy cream consistency. So whilst that's doing, I'm just going to press the button on the camera. I am still here, but we don't want it to go and give us the dark bit. There we go. And you'll see as you do this, it does actually pale in colour. So remember when we talked about the cake of when we cream the butter and the sugar, it goes pale. We didn't see it necessarily with this cake because we had the brown sugar in there. Sorry, it's really noisy. But with this, we will see it go pale. And I can see it already. I'll show you in a minute. We'll scrape down and then we'll give it another whiz. I think that's right at its top, yeah. Oh, there's it. How did you not get mixed in? Off you go. Get in the bowl. When you're scraping it down, when it's whisk, you'll also feel it. It feels light. It feels like the cake batter. You know, it's light, and it's just lovely. You shouldn't be forcing it. You know, when you put your spatula in or your spoon in or your wooden spoon, you're not there going, moving the butter around. You're there sort of mixing it. It's not going to be like a whipped cream. It's not going to be that light. But in terms of a butter, it's definitely going to be lighter. So these lights are making this look really yellow, but that's sort of where it's a good consistency. But I'm going to pop that back down and I'm going to crank it all the way up and let it do its thing again. So let's find our scales. What did I do with them? Oh, I put them over there. Welcome to my kitchen where I can't find anything. Measuring cup. There we are. Been one of them days at work today. One of them days every day at work. That's still whipping, but what we're going to do with our icing sugar, I don't weigh icing sugar out. I don't sieve my icing sugar. Shh, you're very noisy, Pistachio KitchenAid. It's looking good. We'll go back to it in a minute. Let's have a breather from the noise. With my icing sugar, I don't sieve it. I don't weigh it out and then transfer it like I did with the flour and the sugar. It just makes a mess, trust me. After years in the shop, when I had the cupcake shop, of it just being on all your surfaces like dust, it's horrible. So what I do is I literally start with my box and do it from there. I take from the weight. I know how much sugar I need, icing sugar I need. So for this recipe, 275 grams. So I can open it out onto here and just weigh it. And this will go to, because I'm weighing it with it on from the start when I turned it on, it sets to 0. So I know now that when I take away from here, it will count down, and when it hits minus 275 grams, I know I've taken everything that I need. It doesn't mean that I'm pouring this and there's clouds of missing sugar everywhere and it's in your hair and it just feels horrible. So this is the way this is why we haven't got any icing sugar weighed out. This is looking stupendous. This is just pure butter at this point, don't forget. We haven't added anything else into it. But it's just fabulous. Oh, yeah, that's really good. Really, really good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a spoon or a measuring cup or whatever, and I'm just going to start. I'm not going to add it all at once, but I'm going to take a good scoop. That's about 100. If you want to, you can do this spoon by spoon. It can be a bit tedious. But before I add it in back onto the mixer, I'm just going to start to fold it in using the spatula here. It just, again, a bit like with the flour or the cake mix, it's not going to boof up into a big cloud. And I'm going to pop that on. Now, like we did with the cake batter, if you want to, you can add a drop of milk. If you feel that this is quite heavy, it's not necessarily coming together as well as you expect it, just a drizzle of milk, not too much, because if we add too much milk, then we can make our buttercream too runny. So be patient with it. Try not to add the milk in the first addition of your icing sugar. There. So there we go. See, it's coming together. I'm just going to scrape that down for the moment. There we go. Scrape it off onto the whisk. I'm going to add another spoon of my icing sugar. I'm going to take this off because, like I say, I want to fold it in a little bit by hand first. Come on. There we go. Only need a little bit now on the last one. So fold that in. When you're folding it in, it's never going to fully combine. That's the beauty of what the mixer does. But at least if you're sticking that icing sugar to the butter, it's not going off in big clouds in your face. I mean, I can taste it in the air just as it is. There. Oop, get back in. We've got a little bit of a puffy cloud, but that's fine. So off that goes. Don't be afraid as well to take it up a notch. If you're doing it with a hand mixer, start off slow because you're over it and you don't want the icing sugar everywhere. But take it off slow and then add some speed. Take it up notches. Oh, looking really good. So, oh no, stop. It's lovely and smooth. We've whipped that butter before. You might have gone, oh, well, Louise, as you're doing it with the icing sugar, surely you're whipping the butter. Yes, you are, but you really want that butter nice and light and soft before you start adding your icing sugar, because the icing sugar is going to just bring it all together and make it dense. So starting off with a softer butter is better than that light whipped butter. It just makes the whole experience of your buttercream a lot nicer. So I've got my last 50 grams. Normally when I do a buttercream, I will do a 2-to-1 ratio. So whatever I do of icing sugar, I do half of butter, or whatever I do of butter, I double of icing sugar. But for this, it's slightly less on the icing sugar because we've got the caramel in there with the sweetness and I don't want to go overboard on the icing sugar. So let's get that out of the way so we don't make any more mess with that. That's our last lot of icing sugar in here. At this point now, I'm going to mix this through. But I've not added any milk yet because I'm going to add my caramel and I'm going to see what that texture's like. So let's get that. Scrub off. So this is my caramel, the same, the dulce de leche in there. And that's going to add a little bit of wetness. We're going to see what that's like. We might add a little bit more in. Let's have a go. Let's see what this comes out like. Oh, I probably rubbed all my makeup. So that's coming together. I am going to add a little bit, just a tiny bit of milk. It's got this lovely caramel colour, which was the colour of the cake. I guess under these lights, because we're using just the regular kitchen lights, it can look a little bit yellow. But so right in the bottom, can you see that I've got a little bit of icing sugar? It doesn't want to, despite the fact that I keep digging into it, it doesn't want to go into my buttercream. So I'm just gonna a splash. That is it. It is just a splash. But I'm hoping that that's going to lift that from the bottom, give it a really good scrape down, get all that caramel there in. We've got the caramel we've got the buttercream on the whisk. Let's just get it in. You see, when I'm doing this, there's no resistance from that buttercream. And this is, especially if you're piping, you want your buttercream to be this consistent. Because if you put, tastes so good. We haven't even put any salt in it yet. When you're piping, let's put this on. When you're piping buttercream, if it's not light and smooth and it's heavy and dense, it can be really difficult to squeeze your piping bag and it to come out. And when you pipe it, you're forcing it. You're working against it. But by having a nice, smooth, easily spreadable, that's the trick. And we'll have a look in a minute. We can just glide a spoon or a spatula through it. It just means that you're not forcing the bag when you're piping. You're not causing it to feel claggy. So that's beautiful. But also then if you're doing this, or you just want to spread it on a cake, in the middle of a cake, or just spread, do a buttercream ice cake, it's just nice and easy to do it. You're not working against that buttercream at all. So yes, it's lovely. It's so much nicer to eat as well. It just feels nicer to eat. And it's not like you get the light buttercreams in store-bought cakes and things like that, which have got various synthetic stuff in there, or they've got like vegetable shortening and like the old school Trex, and that helps keep it light because it doesn't have the fat ones like butter, the dairy. So it just tastes nicer as well. It's a nicer experience to eat. So let me get a fresh spatula out and I can show you then what I mean. So this is just on here, but if I'll scrape it off and you'll see, like, I'm just pushing it. I'm not even, the only thing I'm fighting against here is the whisk blade. But it's soft, but it holds its shape. If I'd added any more milk, I might see it start to split. It might be grainy, and then, or it gets too soggy, and it might be smooth. It might be soft, but it's too soft, so it doesn't hold itself very well. Give that a tap. Oh God, that's good. That is good buttercream. It's light, it's smooth, and this is what I want to show you. So let me just scrape off the rubber spatula. So this is our buttercream. When I say it's easily spreadable, this is just a regular palette knife. And if I drag it, you can see it just spreads. I am holding it with 2 fingers. It's spreading, it's not resisting. It's just nice and light there. And it tastes really good. So I want to make this a salted caramel. I'm going to use my sea salt. Don't go and dump a huge amount in there because you'll oversalt it and then it's not particularly nice. So this is Maldon sea salt. It's fine. You probably can't see it, or you might be able to see it. It's fine sea flakes. And I'm just going to pinch those and literally, as if you were seasoning a salad where you add salt, but you don't add huge amounts. It's not like we're salting water or salting potatoes or a stock where, you know, we put big handfuls in. I'm just going to crunch it between my fingers and then fold it through. Now, it's not going to be a huge sort of, God, salty. It's a real subtle flavour. If you want to add more salt, be my guest. But remember, you don't want a salty cake. What I do is I add, like we've got there, a good pinch and crunch it up. Those flakes will disperse really nicely into our buttercream. And then when I ice the cake later, what I'm going to do is I'll put this and I think I'm going to pipe across the top. But this is why I wanted the pretzels. I'm going to add these as decoration, but I might add some chocolate sprinkles and a few or one more sprinkle of sea salt on the top, just to add some balance there. Because then that's a nicer way of doing it. Because if you add too much salt into the caramel buttercream, it just becomes excessively salty, and that's not what we want. So mind you, I did just get a salt flake in there, and that just perfect. Now, if I do say so myself, and now I've just got the salt. You get that sweet. You get that with the buttercream, with, like, say, the salted buttercream, salted caramel buttercream. You get the creaminess from the butter, which is already, don't forget, we've used the salted butter, so it's already got salt in there, which brings out the caramel flavour. Then we've got the carnation caramel, the dulce de leche in there as well, which brings out the sweetness. And then we've got that salt that we've just added in, and you just get that sweet, salty, creamy, smooth, caramelly. Oh my, it's so good. So that's all done. I mean, apart from mess, we're at a point where we're in a good place. This beauty here is rising lovely. We have got a little crack on the top. What I'm going to do is, because I've opened a can of carnation. Now you can put a lid on this, put it in the fridge, and it'll keep, or you can just eat it with a spoon. But what I'm going to do with this is, where that crack has actually happened, before the crack happened as it baked, I'm going to just take out like a V-shaped tray. I'm not going deep in the cake, but just about a centimetre. So I'm going to take a V out of the centre of the cake, so it's a bit like its backbone, and I'm going to put the caramel in there. I'm going to not go right to the ends, otherwise it will just ooze out the sides. But then when you get a slice, you've got that marble texture, you've got this caramel ooze, and then we've got the salted caramel buttercream on the top with our chocolate covered pretzels, because the non-chocolate covered ones were only sweet, sour cream and chive, which doesn't go, and some chocolate sprinkles and some more sea salt. So that's it. I will put that all together. Obviously, we've got to wait, and you guys really don't want to wait for that to bake and then cool. So I'm going to leave you to your evening. But as usual, I'm just going to do you a quick recap. We have made a chocolate caramel loaf cake. It's a marble chocolate caramel sponge. We've got that salted caramel buttercream, and then we're going to add that core of caramel in the top as well. If you want to add some salt to your carnation caramel, you can as well. Remember, sea salt, little sprinkle, taste, but don't expect it to be a really salty hit. It's really subtle, and then it comes through. So you can do that with that as well. It serves about 10 to 12 people. This is in a 2-pound loaf tin, which is 23 by 13, or it's sometimes called a 900-gram loaf tin. And it is really, really easy. It's sold to caramel heaven if you add the salt, but it's got the caramel, it's got the chocolate, and we've used that dark cocoa powder, which really adds the chocolate at the right amount of flavour. It's fun. It's going to look amazing when we cut into it. She says, hopefully. It's flavourful. It's a classic chocolate loaf, elevated a bit more. And as I said, there really is no cons in this, absolutely none whatsoever, unless you don't like chocolate cake or caramel. Ingredients wise, it does look a long list, but I can guarantee you've probably got most of these at home. Butter, sugar, the brown and the white. They're bringing some extra caramel tones to that sponge. But if you don't want to use brown sugar, you can use regular caster sugar. Self-raising flour with a little bit of baking powder just gives it that extra rise. We've used our medium eggs at room temperature, and then we split our cake batter into 2 equal quantities, and we've flavoured one with the cocoa powder and then one with the caramel or the dulce de leche. When I'm talking about caramel, go for something like this, the thicker caramel. Don't go for the caramel syrups or the caramel sauce. They won't add the same depth of flavour. They tend to be higher on the sugar content. So it's going to add extra sugar into your bake, and then that randomly makes it all a bit weird. You get a slightly different texture. So go for the condensed milk sort of type caramel. You'll find it either in the baking aisle and I think the condensed milk sometimes is in the baking aisle, but you might find it with like the tinned custard and stuff like that. There. For the buttercream, it's just my standard buttercream recipe, whipping our butter, salted butter, and our icing sugar, adding some of that caramel or caramel I've put here, caramel, and then a pinch of our sea salt if you want to take it to a salted caramel level. Remember, sea salt rather than table salt. It's all a bit chemically. And they say equipment, parchment, mixers, bowls, spatulas, knives, all the usual accoutrements, but you'll need a loaf tin, which is about 2 pound 900 grams there. And that's it. As usual, everything will be on the website when I get to it. I am working through the custard cream cheesecake. I've taken the pictures, written the post, just need to edit the pictures. So that hopefully will be up today, tomorrow, just finishing that off. We had a little bit of a detour for the Halloween Oreo cookies that I put up. I will blog those, but the recipe is on the reel. Also, the request for the mint choc brownies, I will get around to rephotographing it and doing the recipe and updating the post. But if you ignore the waffle about my trip to Coventry, I think it is, and my nephew that was 3 years old who loves mint choc chip, who is now 13 and bigger than everybody, well, nearly 13 and bigger than everybody, which is quite scary, enjoying it. It's a great recipe. It's one of my first recipes on the blog, and I love it. But we are going to have another crack at that one and give it a lift up. So they will be there next week. I'm so right. I said to my mum, can I borrow her air fryer? Now she would typically, she swears by her air fryer. They go traveling and motorhoming, so it's great. They can pack it up and they don't have to deal with cookers and ovens and stuff like that. She loves her air fryer. My sister-in-law loves her air fryer. My other sister-in-law loves her air fryer. My cleaner's mum loves her air fryer. Vanya loves her air fryer. So does Jen. We don't tend to use the oven a lot. We do a lot on the hob, so I haven't got one. But I have so many people asking for air fryer recipes. I'm going to try it out. I've borrowed my mum's air fryer. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to do some trial baking in it this week and weekend, and see what it's like just for a regular plain cake. I have my reservations having seen what they come out like for other people. But what I do want to try in it is something that I really love doing, but I get really scared about doing stuff on a hob with lots of hot oil, and donuts baked in the oven just aren't the same. We're going to do air fryer donuts next week. I'm so excited for this. That is all proviso that it doesn't go wrong between now and then when I do some test batches. But we're going to give it a try. So we're going to be making a bread dough. I'll make some in advance. I'll talk to you about how they can freeze. We'll look at what you can put in, and they don't. Apparently, they take like 8 to 10 minutes in the air fryer. So you'll be able to see the results. We'll have the air fryer here, and we'll be doing it. So yeah, I'm really excited by that. I don't think it means I'm going to go out and buy an air fryer, because Ian might go, "You don't need any more kitchen equipment." But we're going to try it. So I am, as you can tell, I'm really excited for those. So I'm not putting that out to the vote. No vote this week. We're doing air fryer donuts. So excited. But I'm going to ease my excitement. I'm going to let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your evening. That cake is looking stupendous. You can't see it because it says thanks for watching. But look out for the recipe. Look out for everything else that I'm showing. Thank you very much for coming into my kitchen on a wet and windy Wednesday. Wherever you are in the world, please take care, stay safe, and lots of love. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.